Wonderful. Hey, before I talk about Dave, I thought I'd just do a little plug for the ARARA conference. Most of you know that we are going virtual this year. We're getting very close to be sending out some information on that. And if you're desperate for a t-shirt, which I know all of you are, we've got t-shirts available for the conference on our website. Dave is an old friend of mine. I've known him for many years. We're both members of the Utah Rock Art Research Association. Dave lives in southern Colorado, and he has spent a lot of time down in the Four Corners region. You know, I go down and I hike into a site and I hike out. Dave goes down and he says, okay, I'm going to get to know Comb Ridge, and he'll spend a couple of years just, going everywhere there. He is a person who, once he has set his mind to something, he's going to do it in an excellent way. He's an extraordinary photographer. One of his photographs sits above my desk in my office. I look at it every day that I'm there. He won the Canyonlands Natural History Photo Contest in 2010 and ARARA's Oliver Award for Photography in 2012. That was for a huge documentation effort that was done at Sand Island in the Bluff, Utah area. And some of you may have been there and gone upriver a little bit. A lot of very old rock art there that was heavily repatinated, and they relied on Dave's incredible photography skills to bring that out so that it could be drawn and documented in order to get that back into the proper record. Dave's a great hiker. His job is to build stone walls. He's a mason, and so that's another interesting aspect. He looks at dwellings from a different way than I would ever do so, just because he has that experience and that capability. He's a great person to be around. He's a great photographer. He's different than I am. When COVID started, I just hung out in my basement and tried to stay away from everybody. And Dave decided that instead he was going to continue his practice of going out and really researching the areas that he loves. And so he spent a lot of time during COVID, going back and exploring places that he'd been to before and finding a lot of new things. And tonight it's my pleasure to welcome Dave to talk about some of his COVID trips. Thanks, Dave. I'll turn it over to you.
All right, so let me get the screen shared here. Okay, can everybody see the screen? Peter, can you hear me?
You're good, Dave.
I'm good. Okay, I'm going to start this thing rolling. Troy, thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. Yes, Troy and I have shared the trail on several occasions in southeastern Utah, and it's always a pleasure to do so. So, welcome everybody to the COVID trips. This is how I have spent my time instead of staying inside and watching television, which I cannot do. This is how I have whiled the time away, and it's been a very rewarding time. The Four Corners area is very, very rich with rock art. And so I'm going to show you guys some of the things that I found as I have pushed further out into areas that I have been going into for 25 years. And it's just amazing that you continue to find incredible new panels all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and ask that you guys don't ask for site locations after this. I'm sure you guys will honor it. Hopefully none of you are taking pictures of the screen either as this goes along. So I'm going to start with the Moab area. This is where my significant other lives. We go out quite often in this area, and even as much as we go out, there's still more new stuff to find. So I'll start off with the site here that's in one of the upper reaches of one of the nice drainages that's around Moab. This is called the Cat Site. For the figure in the upper left corner with the long tail, I'm sure it represents a mountain lion. This is another site east of town. And during the introduction or during the coffee hour, there was a discussion about the shape of sheep's bodies. And behind Peter, there was a picture that had a bunch of square sheep. As you can see in this photograph, there are mostly oval sheep. And off towards the right-hand side of the picture, there's one that's kind of shaped like a bean. So, and there'll be some other sheep shapes as I go along in this presentation, but it varies a lot from region to region what you'll find. This is in that same area as the last photograph. This is also found east of Moab, a very interesting glyph. Looks like Siamese twins. I was always struck by this image when I see it. It's just this solitary glyph on the bottom side of this huge rock that looks like you could just push it with your finger and make it go right over the edge. So this next picture in the series is going to be of the surface of the rock that is in the lower left-hand corner of this picture. Oh, sorry. That is what that looks like. It's a beautiful archaic panel with what I'm presuming are bear prints. This is a very nice Barrier Canyon panel. Unfortunately, it has been hit by a lot of rain because it's not under a big overhang. So it's unfortunately streaked a lot. This is a de-stretched, enhanced photograph to bring this out a little bit better. And if you'll notice, along the bodies of those snakes, the bodies are made up with individual fingerprint marks. And whoever did this really put themselves in danger to stand up there and do that because the ledge is not very wide below this. And here's another variation on the sheep body shape. I just love this panel because it just shows a lot of action. It looks like they're moving. They're not static. And sometimes it's really impressive how much movement these artists could put into the panels. So there's a great story behind this picture. So this was taken off of a ladder. A friend of mine had a great idea of packing a ladder up to this site and climbing up it so you could get a straight on shot of it. So you don't have that parallax distortion that you end up with when you're standing right below something. And just to prove that it actually happened, there's some pictures of us with the ladder set up. Of course, neither one of us got a picture of either of somebody on the ladder because while somebody was up on the ladder, somebody was holding it steady. So of course that person didn't fall off. I think it ended up making a great panel photograph even better, being able to get up high enough to get it straight on. I wouldn't try this if I were you though. On the way out from that snake and mouth panel, there's a boulder that sets in a little alcove, and we passed by it dozens of times. You can kind of tell something is on there, but there was something about the quality of the light that day that made all of this stuff just pop out like I'd never seen it before. I couldn't believe I was looking at the same boulder, and I had gone back and looked at older photographs of the same boulder, and you can barely see any of those Barrier Canyon figures that are dark. It was really stunning how just different light quality really changes the appearance of rock art. And this is a great example of that. I wish I would have put one of my older photographs in this so I could have shown you just how drastic that difference is in some cases. This is a nice little panel south of town. As you can see, there's a nice owl there. There was a nice bit of serendipity this day. After Lee and I had visited this panel. We were on our way out, and we were walking along the creek bed, and there's a lot of brush, and I decided we were going to get out of there and get up on the bench. So I'm making my way up, and all of a sudden I hear this commotion, and I look up, and there's just bird in my vision. Just a big bird flew by, and I couldn't even identify it. Now, Lee is that's her second passion. Actually, it's probably her first passion is birding. And knowing the habits of birds, she figured that it probably didn't fly far, and it didn't take her but a couple of minutes to find it. And so this is the bird that I spooked up, which is an owl. I thought that was just a beautiful bit of serendipity for the day. So here's a panel that's north of Moab. It was completely unknown by anybody that we knew in the rock art circles in Moab. A couple stumbled across it, and then word got back to us that it had been found north of town. And it's a really nice Barrier Canyon site. Two sets of figures. They were made at really different times, and the two on the right are the most interesting. So here is a D-stretch of those two figures. As you can see, there's a lot going on there that's hard to see, even when you're on site looking at it. A lot of those fine lines are, they've lost a lot of their pop over the years. And the thing about this panel is the figures are really big. So how big, you may ask? Well, that's me standing there, and that's a lot of paint. That's a lot of work. Somebody went through a lot of work to make all that paint and then put it on the wall. That was a commitment to do that. It's pretty impressive. So this is my haunt. This is Western Colorado. This is where I call home. This is a canyon, and Canyon of the Ancients National Monument. This is Cross Canyon. This section of the canyon that you're looking at is about 900 feet deep. It's pretty big. There's a lot of land to check out there. Lots of variables, lots of cliff band to walk. And it's kind of rugged. It's a lot more rugged than you would think. It's kind of a nice panel, not too great to see because of the rock type. But that concentric circle on the right-hand side is about 3 feet across, just to give you a size perspective. Here's a nice little group of panels here. This is the most interesting section of those panels. Some nice flute players. This is probably around P3, which is typical of most of the panels in the monument. And this panel is very typical of what you'll find in the monument. They're not really big involved panels. They're smaller panels, usually anywhere from a dozen to 20 elements. A lot of geometric. So I've been working on a job in McElmo Canyon, which is west of Cortez. Big corridor, lots of sites, all the way from Basket Maker all the way up to P3. I was working with a guy whose family homesteaded this place back in the 1880s. He was one of at least the 6 families that homesteaded McElmo Canyon. And he told me he had some rock art on his property. And I was like, oh, cool, I'll go check it out. And we came up to this, and I was just floored by how extensive the site was. This is the densest part of the panel. And here is a D stretch of that section. As you can see, there's a lot going on there. And there were probably at least another 50 elements spread out on the walls adjacent to this. Really nice site. On that same property, there was a whole wall that was covered in pictographs, and they were really hard to see. So this is, one of those times when the magic of D-stretch really helps out a lot, so you can see what's actually there. Another panel in Canyon of the Ancients. This is just inside Colorado. In fact, it may be in Utah. I don't know. It's there's a canyon there where it kind of goes back and forth. You're in Utah one minute, you're in Utah or Colorado the next, back into Utah, back into Colorado. Um, this is a nice little panel Sally Cole told me about years ago. During the COVID times, I finally had time to go over there and try to search it out. And I'm looking for pictographs. So I bashed through all kinds of brush, uh, trying to get into every little overhang I could. It's about 6,500 feet. So it's kind of a scrub oak, serviceberry, pinyon juniper jungle. It's a lot thicker than you would think it would be in a high desert. And so I never found it the first day I went looking for it, but I found 4 big ruins that were down in the brush that had kivas. They were pretty extensive sites. And so about 6 weeks later, I took Lee back and took her to the largest one, and we're walking around these big piles of rocks. And she looks up and goes, "Well, there's rock art right up there." And of course, had walked right under this panel. So it always pays to go back to someplace multiple times because you just never see it all the first time. And I was quite embarrassed about this. I literally walked right under this, looking for pictographs and overhangs. So if you'll notice in this picture on the upper left corner, there's aspens outside of this shelter. This is really high in the San Juan National Forest. This is a boulder. I think it was made in P1, P2 times. If this boulder had patina on it, where you could see all the glyphs at once, it is really an amazing boulder. The overarching theme are footprints. There's all kinds, there's probably 40 human footprints on this and dozens of bird prints as well. This is the only anthro on the boulder. Everything else are footprints. To give you an idea of size on this, there's a tiny human footprint that's just to the right of center. That footprint is about 3 centimeters long, and it's got toes pecked in it. And just a little bit up and to the left of center, there's a chipmunk footprint, and that's about as big as a nickel. Knowing what I know about chipping on rock, that is some very delicate, fine pecking that you would have to do to not blow out the edges of those, especially on that footprint. It's really impressive the amount of skill it takes to create something like that. I mean, you have to be very metered in what you're doing. You just cannot go willy-nilly. It's very impressive. So this is another site. This is actually located north of the area that I live in, and it's a very interesting panel. It's located in a place where you would just never think about looking for rock art. It's really not close to a water course. It's just in a really odd place. And but again, very interesting. Possibly a Ute panel depicting beaver pelts. And this is like 50 feet away from being in Utah. It's pretty far extreme western Colorado. But really neat panel. This is probably at about 7,000 feet. So I figured I'd go ahead and throw in a little ruin picture for you guys. This is a neat little tower that's found. It's found in the lower reaches across Canyon. It's pretty neat. I was laying on my back in the doorway of the little tower on the left side of the picture, looking up when I took the photograph. This set of ruins is known because there are bands of black rocks that are set in a very definitive line in these ruins. And it's a very unique thing. You don't see that very often. And nobody really knows why they did that. Here's a pretty obscure panel. I just know a handful of people that have ever been here. And I really had to pump up the contrast to make this come out. This is not easy to see in any kind of light. Um, but it's a pretty extensive panel, really neat, probably from around P3 era, which is what most of the sites in Canada the Ancients are. Um, but yeah, very nice. It's located along a travel route that goes in and out of the bottom of the canyon. This is located most of the way to the top of the canyon, but it's definitely right along a travel route. It's located at a really distinct break in a cliff band that people would use to go through. There was a lady earlier talking that they had just moved to Farmington, New Mexico. Denata is located about 25 miles east of Farmington, New Mexico. At least the entry point is up in the Largo Canyon. Denata is several hundred square miles. It's really extensive. It's a gas field. There's all kinds of roads everywhere. And it's really, really packed with rock art and ruins. A lot of the rock art that you find here is Navajo, but there is also rock art made by Rosa phase culture, which is kind of straddles the late basket maker, early P1 phase. And when you usually find a Rosa panel, you usually find Navajo rock art either superimposed on it or nearby. So this is a typical of a Rosa face panel, usually lots of anthros. This is very interesting because there's a bunch of cranes on this panel. And there's also some historic pictographs there. I'm sure some of you guys are picking up some of the red anthros that are in there. Here's another wonderful Rosa face panel. I really like the guy that's rendered on either side of the crack. So who knows what that is depicting. Maybe he's got bipolar order, who knows? Bipolar disorder, pardon me. Another wonderful Rosa face panel. This is located quite a bit out of the canyon bottom. It was quite the little scramble to get up to this. I've been told that these squares that have these shapes within them, I've been told that those were clan symbols, but I'm not really for sure. This is a panel that Lee and I found. It is actually not recorded. This is not on the state database. And here's another very extensive Rosa face panel. And this is very interesting because right along with the last one, there's no Navajo rock art that's either over this or adjacent to it. And I'm not for sure why that is on this series of panels in this canyon. So I want to draw your attention to the figure that is left of center. He's fairly large. When I got up to this ledge, the sun was on him, and I was really struck by the head on this figure. It's very unique. I've never quite seen anything like that in this area. I'm not for sure what to make of that and what they were trying to depict. It's kind of a face, but it's maybe they were wearing a mask of some kind. Maybe that's what that represents. I don't really know for sure. This is one of the many pueblitos that are out in Denata. These were originally thought to be built by the Pueblo refugees that were escaping the Pueblo revolt of the late 1600s. They have actually been found out to be Navajo in origin, and they were erected to protect the Navajo against the Ute Comanche raids that were happening in the late 1600s to 1700s. Most of these pueblitos were built between 1693 and 1753. This one is called three corn because down at the bottom there are three corn plants that are rendered in the surface of the rock. When you get up there, the roofs of these are still pretty intact. I think this one was 1756, somewhere around there. But yeah, there's a couple of hundred of these dotting the Denata landscape. This is a panel a friend of mine and I found, oh, it was probably close to 15 years ago now. It was located in such a bizarre area. It's no surprise that it was missed by surveys that should have picked it up because there's a well pad that's, not more than 100 yards away from here. But we got the call to blueheads. Very nice shield figures. And when you find panels like this in these really obscure places and you just kind of start looking around at the rest of the cliff bands around, the potential for finding new panels in Denata will probably, it'll probably never diminish. I mean, I go out still, after going here since January of 1994, I'm still going out and finding new things in this area. It's pretty endless. These are called the blue-faced kachinas. This was, or pardon me, blue-faced yebichays. Wrong culture, sorry. The ledge in front of this panel was about as wide as your average coffee table, and it was about 15 feet up. So thanks to the wonders of digital photography, I was able to just kind of hold my camera out there and just snap a bunch of pictures and bring them back and stitch them all together on my computer. These two figures, the main figures, are a couple of feet tall each. It's a really neat panel. It's a billboard. It was made to be seen from a long distance. Another Pueblito. Again, very defensive in nature. Right on the other side of these, it's probably about a 30-foot drop. Another nice little panel. This was completely new to me. Found this last year. So I'm sure a lot of you in the audience may recognize this from Eckhart's book. Every time I've seen this panel, I've just cringed because it's such a beautiful panel and it was badly defaced. That's a metal chisel that did all that work. Unfortunately, who knows what the intent behind it was, but it's pretty horrific what happened. So one evening I sat down with the thought that I'm going to digitally repair this. And so after about 4 hours of work, I came up with this. And I really hope that what I did followed the original artist's intent. I certainly wish I could go out there and restore it like this out in the field. But unfortunately, there's no way that you could ever do that. So this is Canyonlands Needles District. This is probably my favorite place on earth. When I pass away, this is where I want my ashes scattered, is around here. I have been enamored with this place for 3 decades. And it is just amazing how much is out there. And it's just such an amazing landscape. Even if there was no rock art, I would want to go out and wander around in this. In fact, I wandered around in it for a long time before I came interested in rock art. So now it's just the best of both worlds. I'm sure a lot of folks probably recognize this. This is a pretty well-known site in Canyonlands. Yeah, there's hundreds of handprints here. This is a site that I had looked for. I had been told what canyon it was in. I looked for it, could never find it. Um, I think it was in 2020. A friend got some information, a little bit better idea where it was located. We went out there in July. Of course, not the best time to go out there, but we figured nobody would be around. We didn't want anybody seeing where we were going to find this. And I was told that it was small. And when we showed up at the spot where we were given location information for, we were looking at the wall and it was like, well, where is it? And I just happened to notice a little black smudge. And that black smudge turned out to be that beautiful dog. And just to give you an idea how small it is, um, that's my thumb. It's barely 3 inches tall. And to think about the detail, oh my goodness, what kind of brush you would have had to have made and the paint that you would have had to have made to get it to flow out of that brush in such a way where you could create that and not create a mess. It's again, it's a very impressive piece. It's very powerful for being as small as it is. And this is another panel where there's just it's very, very highly detailed. Lots of going on there. This is probably in an area that's probably 2 by 3 feet. And it's amazing that it has lasted as long as it has. This was dated to about 760 BC. A nice old petroglyph panel. If you'll notice on the left-hand side of the picture, there's some darker patina that's still hanging on there. And we started looking at the dark patina and started coming up with some really neat things. A beautiful old bird there. And as we started looking further over, you could see there were little chunks of patina that were still hanging onto the wall that had rock art on them. And so there's probably about, there was at least 25 square feet of panel there at one time that is gone forever. And who knows what was there. It's a really beautiful piece. Some nice pictographs. Pardon me, petroglyphs. I'm really sorry. I walked my butt off today. I'm kind of tired. So this main figure that's on the left-hand side of the picture, it's almost 3 feet tall. So these are pretty good size. Lots going on there. And again, to be able to pick that with such precision and such skill is just so impressive. I'm never lacking in admiration for the people that created these. Uh, Another beautiful painted panel. These figures are close to 4 feet tall. This is located out in the middle of nowhere. I'm sure a lot of you folks have seen this in a presentation over the years, but it's a very impressive panel. This is another beautiful pictograph. It's probably about 18 inches wide. It's not that big. And, you know, thinking about how you would lay all that out before you started to paint it. Another thing that impresses me is, you know, there's no mistakes in that. You don't get to go backwards when you make a mistake when you're painting on rock. So, you know, a lot of these glyphs are made with a lot of intent and a lot of focus. You know, this nice tiny row of figures. These are on average about 4 inches tall. And the row of dots that you're seeing there, those are actually birds with wings. They actually have little wings on them. And this might have been my favorite picture from 2021. I think this is my favorite picture that I took in 2021. I was just there when the light was just really nice. I had hiked out from the trailhead. There was, anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of snow on the entire route. I didn't see anybody else the entire day. It was just one of those really nice days. So this is just kind of a collection of pictures of places from various places in Utah where I've ranged around. Um, again, most of it is in that Four Corners area where I live and have easy access to. Some of it is in other parts of Utah, but all right, I'll get going here. Again, I'm sure some of you folks who have seen a lot of rock art have recognized this. Um, very nice Barrier Canyon panel. So this is one of those places that was way, way, way out there in the middle of nowhere. You had to access this site up a specific slot. And, I was out there with a friend of mine, and it was obvious nobody had been in this site for a long, long time, because there was just all kinds of debris on the walls. The debris in the bottom of the slot was just like loose and chaotic. Nobody had been in there packing it down or turning any rocks over. And there was a habitation in this, probably from P2. Another really nice panel. Lots going on there, lots of little details in this. Just a neat little single figure in this overhang. Not a very big overhang. There wasn't even a grinding slick on any of the boulders. It's kind of a little tribute somebody made. So this is a really neat figure within a figure. I wouldn't say it's a common motif in BCS, but you do see it often. And here's another example of it. If you can look close, you can see that there is another figure within that one. And sometimes I love transferring my photos to black and white, because it just gives them this really neat, the textures really pop out a lot more when you see them in black and white. So I call this flute player on the brain. I've never seen anything like this before. I was just kind of stood there under this one for a little bit, just wondering what thought was behind creating this. This is a completely new panel. This is another one of those instances of where you should just continue to go back and go back and go back to places, because I've been in this canyon system dozens of times over the past 2 decades. And you think you know where all the great stuff is. You think we know where all the big panels are. Then you find something like this that's like 4 feet wide and 20 feet long, and it's just covered. And there's other boulders adjacent. And this is just another example of how there is no end to this stuff out there in the field. I just love being surprised like this. Another nice little Barrier Canyon panel. Just if you'll notice the figure that's on the left-hand part of the picture, with the crazy hair. That figure is on the harvest scene that's in the maze. A definite connection between these two panels due to that figure. Another really neat Ute shield. There was a series of these on the wall. This was the nicest one of the bunch. So it made the cut for the presentation. Well rendered, very nice. I don't know if I've ever seen as many grinding slicks in a shelter before. As much rock as there is in front of the camera, there is as much rock behind the camera. There was well over 100 grinding slicks here, and there was not hardly a bit of the surface of the rock that had not been treated somehow, either ground flat, had some kind of rock art pecked into the surface. It was really an amazing sight. Well, we were probably there for well over an hour, just looking at all the elements that were present. I'm sure some of you in the audience have been to this and you know what a lovely trip it is down the sand slide to see this, but it is well worth the effort to get down there. In the coffee hour, Troy mentioned Glen Canyon linear sheep. This is a classic example of Glen Canyon linear sheep. Another nice little Barrier Canyon panel. Lots of detail in this. Lots of detail. I'll get it. There's a close-up of that one section of the panel. If you'll notice at the very bottom of the picture, there's some patterned handprints. That'll kind of give you an idea of the size of this. It was very impressive. Very impressive. Lots of neat detail in here. And you can see the little dots that are going up and around that figure. Those are actually all individual sheep. This is a panel that's just about lost to time. I'm sure that when this was new, it was really amazing. Unfortunately, this is what happens over time, is that erosion it always wins. We're just fortunate that we can go out and see what we see. Another pretty old panel. Another nice Barrier Canyon panel. Kind of small, just these 4 figures. And just put just under the most slightest of overhangs there. So unfortunately, the 2 outside figures have kind of gotten partially washed away. I love it when you can kind of get rock art pictures and have this beautiful dramatic sky in the background, because it always gives the photograph so much more, it adds another element into it, of course. And little story, we barely got out of where we were. We barely got across the drainage we needed to cross before a flash flood came through. When we got back to the little town that we were camping close to, we had found out that storm that's in the background had actually flooded the highway about 10 miles west of where we were, and it closed it and trapped some folks. But it was quite exciting. But yeah, I love getting out in the weather. It's kind of fun sometimes. Another Barrier Canyon panel. I'd like to draw your attention to the figure on the left. You can see that it has this nice big chest panel. When I was in the field, I got up close and was pretty amazed by what's in there. Inside that chest panel, and this is a D stretch, there were 4 figures within that chest panel. Um, it's really neat. Pretty excited to see that. I love these multiple details that are present in some of these Barrier Canyon panels. Another nice panel. I think there is historic reference to there being a hoop game. Not exactly how it was played and what the rules were, but I imagine this is a depiction of that. Another nice Barrier Canyon panel. This is another one of those that was pretty tough to get to. I would not recommend this for most folks. It's a commitment to get here. And they're actually pretty nice. They're really nice. They're polychrome. So there's some of them have got white, ochre, and red. Very nice. And they're pretty big too. Pretty good sized. And when that picture was taken, I was pretty beat. I was pretty tired by that point in the day. And so here's the last picture in the presentation. This is probably my single favorite boulder that I've ever seen out there. If you guys will notice, the top and the left side have actually been modified. Somebody went through there and chipped the edge of that out like a napped arrowhead and created this effect. It's really amazing when you're standing there looking at it. And this boulder is close to, on this left-hand side, it's close to 7 feet tall. So it's pretty imposing when you're standing there. It's really beautiful. There's glyphs from a couple of different episodes there. So time for shameless self-promotion. I have a book, Ancient Galleries of Cedar Mesa. This is about kind of the heart of the Bears Ears area, Cedar Mesa, Comb Ridge, some of the area going up into the National Forest that's above natural bridges. And if you happen to be in the Blanding area, I have a 43-piece photography show going on at Edge of the Cedars Museum that will be up until the end of April. So if you happen to be out there in the springtime looking at things at Cedar Mesa, please stop by Edge of the Cedars. It's a wonderful facility. They've got really nice collections. There's a lot of great information there about the area. So that concludes my presentation for this evening. I hope everybody here has enjoyed it. And thank you very much for showing up.
All right. Well, thank you, Dave. That was like a lot of sights for sore eyes, I think I would say. I'm glad you really made the best of the couple of years of COVID here.
Well, I hope some folks saw something. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say there were a couple of questions, mostly in terminology, which I think people from that area are probably familiar with. But if you're not, maybe you can help us out. So there was the Rosa, what was it? Rosa face?
Oh, Rosa phase?
Yeah. If you could just
yeah,
explain.
A Rosa phase. A Rosa phase it's just a time, basically, from say probably around 750 AD to probably maybe a 950 or 1000 AD. And it's Rosa phase was found in the Navajo Reservoir District, mainly. It's what's considered, some folks consider it's an Eastern basket maker. It's kind of contemporary with the basket maker 3-time around the San Juan drainage. So there's there's certain similarities in the culture, but the rock art is completely different.
Yeah, and the
Hopefully
other
that's good
thing,
enough explanation for you.
yeah, great. No, that's helpful. The other thing, I think some people probably know what you meant by P1 to 3, but it might be worthwhile explaining that as well for those that haven't heard the terminology.
Okay, P1 to P3, of course, that just, what that denotes is, again, different time frames during the cultural development. And so there were, I do not unfortunately have notes in front of me to give you detailed information about this. You can find a lot of this information on the internet. Um, And P1 to P3, it's a Pecos classification that was settled on. I cannot remember when that was. Um, and it means Pueblo 1, Pueblo 2, and Pueblo 3. And there again, it just describes different diagnostics, groups of diagnostics that have appeared during certain time frames. I'm sorry, I'm not a better archaeologist
No,
to be able to
that.
give you, pardon?
No, that's fine. I
To
just
give you a
figured
more,
that. Yeah, no,
I guess
no.
I just assume, some people are looking at rock art that they would kind of have a better idea of what those mean. But if you just look up, if you Wikipedia Pecos classifications, you'll get a lot of information, a lot more than I can give you right now about it.
Yep. Yeah, basically, I think this is a case where a picture is worth 1,000 words. So we got a lot of information, but it was visual. So thank you very much for that. And also thanks to all the attendees for your interest. And remind you again, if you would like to learn more about ARARA, please check out our website and Facebook pages. If so inclined, it's a good time to renew or join our membership. And our next event will be April 9th with Margaret Barrier, known as Marglyph, on the relationship between rock art and Mimbris pottery imagery. So until then, everyone, good evening and stay safe.